This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Welcome to another episode of Business by the Numbers. I'm your host, Demarest, CPA with Paar, Melis & Associates. So, this week's episode is credit to myself, which I know is a change, as the last couple of weeks have all been requests or ideas coming from listeners, clients, and you name it. But I just went through this legal process this week and a light bulb came on. So I had to do some legal work for some of my own finances. We'll talk about in a little bit. And I thought to myself, this is something I talk about. This is something that I've told a number of clients over the last couple months, years, decades. So why not tell you guys? So this legal advice and a couple others that maybe you shouldn't be getting from a CPA is exactly what we're going to talk about this week. Before we get into that, I just wanted to stop and say thank you to you and the rest of the dedicated listeners. Remember, if you want to hear your question answered on here, just have a question for me or an idea for a future episode, shoot me an email at podcast@parmelis.com. Lastly, we cannot forget our dedicated sponsors, NAPA TRACS and Promotive, for being such loyal supporters of the show. So if you're in Vegas this week, I know that as you're listening to this, you're probably at SEMA or maybe on your way back, but tell them that we said hi, stop by and say thank you for all that they do. I'm sure they will be there. Hey, did you know NAPA TRACS has on-site training plus 6 days a week support? It all starts when a local representative meets you to learn more about your business and how you run it. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice. Let us prove to you that TRACS is the single best shop management system in the business. Visit them online at napatracs.com. That's napatracs.com. Are you tired of writing ads that don't generate one good candidate? Introducing Promotive, a full-service staffing solution for your auto repair shop. Go beyond the job boards and let them find your next rock star. They do all the heavy lifting for you. Visit them online at gopromotive.com. First and foremost, this is not legal advice, even though that what I'm going to tell you is all legal advice. I have to put this disclaimer on there. The title of this episode, Legal Advice from a CPA, is somewhat tongue-in-cheek here. What does this mean, Hunt? You're about to give us legal advice, but you're telling us that I'm not giving you legal advice. Part of this is cover my butt, right? I have to tell you I'm not a lawyer, so everything that I tell you has to be said as such. But just like a lot of things that we cover on this show, I like to break things down into real terms. If it's simple, I'm going to call it simple. I'm not going to overcomplicate things. Not that accountants are always great at doing that, but lawyers are probably worse. If you ask a lawyer a question, they're going to do their best to explain to you in the most confusing way possible. And if they're billing by the hour, sometimes the longest way possible. All that I hope to accomplish on here is to give you ideas, to give you framework, to give you some situations that you should then go have a conversation with your lawyer, with your attorney. This is not meant so that you can go to LegalZoom. This is meant for you to go to your legal counsel. Now, that being said, all of this advice is good advice. All of this advice is generally practice. All of this advice is probably applicable to most situations. But I have to leave that out there. Does not mean that it's going to be directly applicable to your situation, every situation. So your results may vary. What was that story that you were talking about, Hunt? This whole idea came from a story that I have, so I have to share it with you guys. It is not a fun one. It is not an exciting one. It is rather boring. But also sometimes these are where the best ideas come from. Because I don't think about this, I've talked about this a lot, that I did it for myself, that I was like, man, I got to talk about with you guys. So I have a rental property. This is a residential rental property in a beautiful part of, I guess, eastern Baltimore, right? We won't get into too much specifics for some of you local guys. But I have a house in Baltimore. It's a rental house. And I bought that about a year or two ago. So when I bought that a year or two ago, I set up a rental LLC, and I thought that everything was good on this, and actually only came up when I'm going to get new tenants in there. And I realized that when they recorded this, all the paperwork said my LLC name, all of my insurance, everyone was on the same page that this property was owned in my LLC. Now, come to find out that the deed is not in my LLC's name, it is in my name. Even though I set up this LLC, I did everything correctly on this. I notified everyone. People did not do their job. I don't really care, right? At the end of the day, I should have looked at this stuff. So I'm not blaming the title attorney. He's a good dude. He did a good job on, I guess he didn't do a good job on this because this got missed, but it's not the end of the world. This is no harm, no foul. it really didn't end up costing me anything. Now, why I do tell you this is two reasons. This is a wake-up call for those of you that think that you've already done this. So if you're already done what we're going to talk about here, anything that we're going to talk about in the episode, call and confirm this stuff, right? Hey, you think that property is registered in the LLC name? Go look it up. Most of this stuff is public record, so you can look this up pretty easily. But if you do have an attorney, it is very easy for them to look up and confirm this. Even if you say, Hunt, I've already done this, make sure that you have, because up until about a month ago, if you would have said, Hunt, you should have your properties in an LLC, I would laugh at them and say, they already are, right? Mistakes happen. The thing of why I said this didn't really cost me any money is there is kind of a recordation anytime that you register something in Maryland. So I probably paid a couple bucks extra by doing it now, but essentially some of the fees that I paid to transfer this into an LLC, I would have paid no matter what. But one of the things that I do not know a lot is how much does this cost? So in my situation, it cost me $500 to transfer a property from my personal name into an LLC that I own 100% of. So that's going to be the first question. If you're sitting here to yourself thinking, I own my building in my personal name, how much is all of this going to cost me? It's not going to cost you a whole lot. It's only going to cost you $500, $1,000. Now, the reason of why there should be some variability to this is most all of that is really just the state's fees. I think that I'm paying $350 to the state and $150 to this person doing the work, but it is not expensive. Also, this was not done through an attorney. This was done through a title company. I'm a CPA, so I was able to register and get my LLC set up. If you don't have any LLC set up, you're going to have to get a lawyer to set up the LLC too, which might add another couple $100. So if you have an LLC already that you can use, $500 to transfer that. If you need to do the LLC at the same time on it, you're probably looking at $1,000 to do this. The big thing on this is you're probably thinking to yourself, Hunt, who cares, right? Why do you care if it's in your personal name or in your business name, right? Why did you do this? So I will be upfront with you. This is going to not save me a single cent on taxes. It is not going to cost me money on taxes. I am not going to save me any money on taxes. None of this strategy is having an asset or a real estate in an LLC or your personal name is going to do anything in a positive or negative light from taxes. There's a chance that by changing some of the stuff, it could, but it's not because of the actual entity structure. It's something else on there. So why are we doing this? Why are we wanting to separate ourselves from something like this? The case is with my rental property on there is who owns that, right? Because the property owner always has some liability, right? You have liability insurance, you have homeowners insurance, but insurance is to cover expenses, but there is a limit to that. So if I own that property, if I own that house and I have a tenant that slips and falls and really hurts themselves, and for some reason they're blaming the landlord, if I am on the title, if that is my property, I still have insurance. So I don't want to kind of freak anyone out unnecessarily. This is a very rare case that it can go this far. Generally, your insurance is going to cover this stuff. In cases of gross negligence or massive issues, whoever owns this is now on the hook. So if that person went, they sued my insurance and my insurance was exhausted, or maybe I did something silly or illegal and my insurance didn't cover this, this is now on me personally. That liability is now on me, my family, my house, my personal assets. Now, by doing this, by paying $500, what I did was I now transferred that into my LLC's name, and that is now my LLC's responsibility, problem, everything in between. So if that same situation happened where someone slipped, they fell, they could go and they could sue me. My insurance company is going to cover that. And if my insurance company was exhausted, they could go after my LLC. Now, everything owned in my LLC is fair game. So they could take that house, it's going to have a mortgage on it, take what you get out of it. Personally, I'm a separate entity. Yeah, I own that LLC, but the purpose of that LLC is to create a corporate veil so that it cannot go outside of this. If you do something bad enough, if you're breaking the law, if you're not doing the paperwork correctly, it does not matter what LLC you have set up. They're going to come after you and they're going to find you. Now, in that same situation I'm talking about here, if that person slips and falls, are they not going to sue me personally? Absolutely. They're going to sue me. They're going to sue any business I'm associated with. Now, if it ever went to court, they wouldn't be able to sue me unless they could prove that I didn't do something correctly on there. But again, like I said, this is probably more of in practice than in reality. We see this as a risk. But the other side of this is at what cost? This is a one-time expense of $500. It's going to show up exactly the same on my tax return. I'm still going to have a rental schedule now. I'm still going to have a rental schedule when it's an LLC. Now, going forward, that one-time $500 expense is going to save me, hopefully, any sort of liability down the road. It is a no-brainer. Risk versus reward. Hey, it's $500. What if it does no benefit? Perfect. I only spent $500. Now, God forbid something does happen 5-10 years down the road. Do you think that you would be kicking yourself that you didn't spend that $500 and just do this? Also, so you guys know how easy this is, other states are going to be different, right? So I'm only talking about Maryland, but as I found out, most states are very similar. I did not have to go anywhere. I did not have to call anyone. I did not have to print out a single thing. I emailed a title agent, said what the issue was, sent over some documents to show my LLC on this. She sent me back an updated deed that I'm actually looking at here on my desk. I have to go get that notarized and I have to send that back to them. That's it. This is very easy. I'm a busy person and it didn't take any time at all. So it doesn't cost a lot of money. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. You need to do this. Now, should I? Right? So who should be taking this advice? If you have a rental property, residential, commercial rental, you should do this, right? So let's say to yourself, hey, I'm a shop owner and I own my own real estate. My business, I operate out of an LLC, but the real estate I own personally. You need to transfer that out of your personal name and into a separate LLC. If you own your business right now and your business is set up legally correct, right? You're in an LLC or a corporation, great. If your real estate is owned outside of that, if you own that personally, it's a no-brainer. Transfer that from your name to an LLC owned by you. Now, here is a very, very important aspect of this. I recommend doing a single member LLC. The reason is because if you do a single member LLC, you are not going to get charged any more on a tax return. It's going to look exactly the same. It's going to be on a Schedule E of your personal tax return. If you make it a multi-member LLC, if you have a partner, if you want to put your spouse on there, you now are a partnership by default. If you wanted to just be the husband or just a wife, you can file that rental schedule on your personal tax return, not going to cost you any different than it was before. If you put that into an LLC that you and your spouse own, and we have to file a partnership return, we're going to end up having the additional cost of a partnership tax return. We do not get any benefit legally. We do not get any benefit from a tax standpoint. If you want to have both of you guys on that LLC, great. But just know there's going to have an additional cost with no benefit. Now, I would be happy to do that return, right? I'm going to charge you to do that tax return, but I like to warn people. Hey, I get it. However you do your finances, do not cause any sort of marital stress by doing this. But if it's up to me, just pick one of you guys, right? There's no reason to have both of you on there. It's just going to make your tax prep fees cost more and not going to give you any benefit. Let's face it, your shop management system is the single most important tool in your shop, period. You need NAPA TRACS because it integrates with all the major players, including NAPA ProLink, Parts Tech, OE Repair Link, Epicor, Tire Connect, Mitchell 1 Pro Demand, and more. NAPA TRACS has leading-edge tools and technology that your shop needs right now. Unlike the other guys, we'll be there after your installation with the best training and support in the business. Your training includes a learning management system that is tailored to each role in your company. Simply put, TRACS was designed and built for shop owners just like you. It all starts when a local representative meets with you to learn about your business to help optimize your shop's workflow, efficiency, and profitability. For over 30 years, NAPA TRACS has made selecting the right shop management system easy by offering the best, most comprehensive SMS in the industry. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice. Visit us on the web at napatracs.com. That's napatracs.com. Shop owners, are you struggling to find and retain top-tier talent for your automotive shop? Introducing Promotive on the web at gopromotive.com. With over 40 years of combined industry and recruiting experience, we're the ultimate staffing solution. We go beyond traditional agencies. Our team provides dedicated recruiters and account managers advising on processes, compensation, and benefits. We focus on placing technicians and service advisors with shops that offer the best culture, training, and long-term growth opportunities. Trust our experience to match the right talent to your shop. We carefully select shops that value employee excellence and provide an environment for success. Our dedicated team leads the entire process, leveraging our industry knowledge and expertise. Partner with Promotive and experience their advantage to help you build a high-performing team that drives your shop's growth. Visit gopromotive.com today and let us help find and keep the best talent in the industry. You have an LLC that you can use that you set up years ago, $500, do this, do it now, do it before you have to worry about it. If you're sitting to yourself, hey, I set up an LLC for my business, I haven't done one yet for my real estate entity, it's going to cost you $1,000. $500 probably for someone to set up the entity, another $500 for them to transfer it from your name into that entity. What if you're sitting here to yourself and saying, Hunt, I own all of my stuff personally, right? I own the business and I own the real estate. And both of those I did in my personal name. You should be transferring both of those things to an LLC. Now, the real estate side is fairly simple, like we talked about before. Hey, we have an LLC. We're going to transfer the real estate in there. Boom, you're done. No one does business with your real estate entity except for you. You don't need to notify anyone. The banks don't care about it. Really, it's fairly simple. Your business is a bit different. I hope that this is not the case for most people, but if you're operating without an LLC right now in your business, I'm going to argue that you probably don't own the real estate, so it's maybe a little bit of a simpler issue. But if you're operating without any sort of LLC, business, real estate, or entity, just stop here and go talk to an attorney, right? You probably have a bit more work to do, and there also is some tax considerations there, but I'm not even going to try to go down that road, right? You got a little bit more legal work to do, but also still something that is not going to be hateful, is going to be a one-time expense, and it's going to pay dividends down the road on this. So a couple other situations. Maybe you're sitting here and you're thinking to yourself, well, Hunt, my business isn't an LLC, but my business LLC owns my real estate and my operating corporation, right? It's all in one unit. What would you do? So in a perfect world, we like to separate our legal liability, right? We like to have the real estate entity own the real estate and the operating business owned by a separate LLC. The reason is if someone slips and falls in your parking lot, they can sue your real estate LLC, not your operating one, and vice versa. If the wheels fall off of a car because you didn't tighten down the lug nuts, they can sue your operating LLC, but they can't touch the real estate. In a perfect world, if you have the option on it, two separate entities. Now, if they're already together, realistically, there is not an easy way to separate those without tax treatment. While it would be better if both of them are separate, the second best option is both of them still in an LLC, but it's the same LLC. Now, what if you have multiple pieces of real estate? Would you set up multiple LLCs for those pieces of real estate? And I would say it depends. And a lot of this stuff down just comes to risk versus reward. If you are in a state, and Maryland is not one of them, that does not have any annual fees to have an LLC, then there's a big argument to have separate LLCs for each of your real estate entities. It's not going to cause you that much more money. It's going to just separate your legal protection. Maybe you're going to pay a little bit more on insurance because there's separate policies, but you don't have a big annual fee. Like let's say California. If you're in California, do not do this, right? Because just California fees alone, you're at like $1,000 just to keep the entity legal. And you probably wouldn't end up seeing the benefits of this. Now, if you're another state that has no annual fees on this, then hey, maybe it's a no-brainer. It's a one-time expense of separating this stuff. For a real estate entity, there's a big argument to do one or the other. That's usually not a big difference in cost. You don't really get a whole lot of cost savings by packaging the insurance on stuff. So really, it kind of goes both ways. Now, in practice, if you have one LLC, is it bad to have all the properties in one? If you have 50, yeah, probably. I wouldn't have that much. If you got 2 or 3 on those, I probably wouldn't lose any sleep over it. Also, the thing about it too is like if you have it in an LLC, like there is ways to spin this off at a future date. Not that it's super easy to do, but there's possibilities. But if you're going to go down through this, just be careful, right? I'll tell you on this. Should you separate it? Do not separate these stuff. Do not set up a bunch of entities until you talk to both your lawyer and your accountant, right? Because if you're only talking to one or the other, they might not be showing you the full benefits or the full cost. So make sure it's in an LLC. Maybe having multiple ones is advisable. But for a real estate entity, yeah, you can probably have an argument both ways. For an operating entity, it depends, right? And I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. We've done this in episodes before. But when someone comes to me and let's say that you have one location, you're looking to add another one. Generally, what they ask me is, Hunt, would you recommend I set up a new entity for this or run it all under one? So what I tell people is this. If you want the most legal protection, you need to run it as two entities. There's not a single lawyer that's ever going to say running this as a combined entity is going to be more legal protection. Depending on what lawyer you talk to, they might not even tell you that you get an added benefit by having two separate entities. The reason is because if you have two separate entities, you need to treat them as two separate entities. Do not share people, do not share resources, do not share money, anything like that. If you look at it from a black and white perspective, most of you guys listening to this right now with multiple entities are probably already running afoul of that. You have money going back and forth, you have payroll getting paid for by one and not supported by another one. And what that means is, let's say you have 3 shops, separate entities on there. A lawyer is and probably has a good argument to say, hey, nice try. These are 3 entities. These things are so intertwined, intermingled. This is all one unit, and we're going to sue them all as it was. So you could have more added benefit by having separate legal structure, but you're now going to have 3 times the accounting cost, 3 times the tax cost. Your insurance is going to be 3 times higher. Your utility bills are going to be 3 times higher. There are so many expenses that are just going to be by entity. If you have an entity, you need this. Now, on the flip side of it, if you run it all under one entity, you can still have separate financials and you can see the profitability by each different location. There's a ton of synergy here, right? 1 tax cost, 1 payroll processing, 1 insurance plan, 1 advertising. There are so many different things that you can save money on by having an entity together that you got to look down. If you're very risk averse, if you're willing to pay a good bit of money to try and get the most legal separation that you can, talk to your attorney about doing these separately, right? It's about 50-50 of my clients of doing same entities or separate. If you're not as concerned about this and you're going to kind of minimize your legality risk on insurance policies and you want to run this all as one, you are going to save money. If we are looking at $1 million year shop, and I'm just going to put a number out here, but I want to quantify this because it is not insignificant. If you came to me and said, Hun, I got one shop that does $1 million a year, and I want to buy another shop that has probably similar sales volume, what do you think the administrative cost difference is by running these separate versus running these as one combined entity? And if you're going to say $1 million a year shop, I'm going to say probably about 30 grand. If you were going to run those as a combined entity, there's probably going to be around 30 grand of synergy and cost savings by running those as one combined unit outside of separating those. Yeah, you might look at that upfront cost of, hey, it's only going to cost me $1,000 to set up another entity for my operating business. Yeah, that's only a tip of the iceberg of the true increased cost going forward. So if you really are risk averse on this, you want to make sure to protect yourself as much as possible, cool. If you want to save some money, if you want to leverage insurance to minimize this, fine. Whatever you feel more comfortable for, talk to your accountant, talk to your lawyer. Do not make the decision on this episode. Those are the 2 major categories. If you have a piece of real estate, residential, commercial, make sure it is an LLC. Do not, any way, shape, or form, own this stuff in your personal name. Never use a debit card. Never run a business in your personal name. You can take that to the bank. Now, there are other things here, and I want to kind of talk about this. And the biggest one is kind of around, all right, Hunt, at what level do we stop? When you look at real estate, you say there is never a case where it doesn't make sense to have a separate entity. Why? Because there is no downside, right? We know it's going to cost us $500. That is the only cost on this. It's not going to change anything else. It is a no-brainer. It doesn't change the tax treatment. Who cares? The next big one that comes up on here is loaner car LLCs, right? To have a separate company that you have all of your loaner car fleet running through. Should you do this or should you not? Should you keep the loaner car LLC that you have? Should you close it down? This is up to you, right? I will be upfront and honest on this. I'm not a big fan of them, really not because of the idea, but what I see in practice. The idea is very, very sound. I love it. It's the same idea of your rental LLC. I'm going to put my vehicles in a separate company, and if something happens in one of the loaner cars, they can sue my loaner car company, but they can't sue my operating entity. Boom, no brainer. Now, a couple things happen here when you start unwinding your loaner cars. Depending on how you set up your loaner car LLC, you could have some negative tax considerations. Best case scenario, you're going to be taxed the same. Worst case, and more than likely, you're going to be taxed slightly or somewhat worse than you are right now. So setting up a loaner car is either going to do nothing or it's going to negatively affect your taxes. So keep that in mind. Insurance. Insurance is a major thing on this. And even if you are doing this right now, I'm not sure if you want to raise this flag, but you need to make sure that your insurance company knows what that company is doing. Also, I've seen so many of you guys set this stuff up where you have the loaner car LLCs, you're paying money over there, and your insurance is still tied to your shop. That probably comes to the biggest reason of why I do not like this. You guys have an added cost of these other entities. You guys are paying me to do these other tax returns. You guys have the added cost of a separate insurance policy, and I don't see you guys actually paying the proper amounts. I don't see these loaner car LLCs actually having the proper titles in the proper names. I don't see yourself paying your loaner car LLC enough that it's able to pay for its repairs back to you at fair market value. That loaner car LLC is not operating like a completely unrelated business to your operating entity. You now have all of the additional cost of the administrative, legal, insurance of operating a separate entity, and it is never, ever, ever, ever going to show up or stand up in court. If you're looking at your loaner car books right now and you're thinking to yourself, I don't have books for my loaner car LLC, this is not going to stand up in court. If you have not figured out an applicable fair market value daily, weekly, monthly rate to rent these to yourself, it's not going to hold up in court. If your loaner car LLC is not making enough money to support itself, it is not going to hold up in court. So what I tell people on this is if you're going to do it, I get it, I understand it, I can see the benefit of it, but you got to do it right. Do not have, a loaner car LLC. It's worthless. You're throwing money away. If you're going to do it, I get it. I'm all for it. Make sure you do this stuff correctly. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, Hunt, how do I do this stuff correctly? How do I protect myself? And this is kind of a good closing thing for all of this. If you have separate LLCs, whether it's separate locations, whether it's separate for real estate, whether it's separate for loaner cars, treat it as such, right? You guys always call me and ask me and say, hey, how should I do this? And I always tell you back, how would you do this if you were not a related entity? How much should I pay my loaner car company? How much would you be comfortable paying if that was an unrelated business? How much would my loaner car company be paying the shop for the repairs? How much would you charge a loaner car company if they came in and want to set up a fleet account with you? Some of these situations and some of these questions become rather complicated because there is self-dealing. The simplest way to figure out what you should be doing, or probably what the legal route is take yourself out of the situation. How would this transaction, how would this price look in the open market? At the end of the day, I hope that you realize that to some aspect, legal protection is just another level of insurance. And insurance is a pretty simple game. How much does it cost and how much could it save me? And from a legality standpoint, I would say the exact same thing. For example, if you go to your attorney and you let them run wild, they're going to set you up with a ton of entities, but at what cost? Does it make sense? Does it limit my risk? Or have I just traded a possible cost for a fixed cost? As always, please share with friends. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, shoot me an email at podcast@parmelis.com. Thanks again for listening on the Aftermarket Radio Network. You can find all shows on the aftermarketradionetwork.com and on your favorite podcast listening apps. So thanks again for joining me on Business by the Numbers. Stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you all next week.
You've been listening to Business by the Numbers with Hunt Demarest on the Aftermarket Radio Network. Follow Hunt on your favorite podcast listening app. Let him know what you'd like him to cover. His email is in the show notes. Hunt is all for advancing the aftermarket.